Well, the first thing that I would say, I think it's very important that people don't just make this decision from their intellectual mind. You have to be living in your body and feeling into where your soul is pulling you and what your heart really knows to make an educated decision. And I think a lot of people make a laundry list of pros and cons, and they're thinking about the money and, we have to stay because of our kids or our finances or whatever it is. But here's the thing. If your heart's not in it, it's really not meant to be. And it's highly unlikely that it's going to be successful if one or both partners have given up.
Welcome to the Growth Life Podcast, where we celebrate individuals and their stories about moments where they were courageous enough to embrace uncertainty, brave enough to love diversity, and smart enough to realize that they don't know everything. The Growth Life Podcast shares stories of growth in all areas: careers, mindset, relationships, wealth, and health.
Hi, welcome to the Growth Life, where we're courageous enough to embrace uncertainty, brave enough to love diversity, smart enough to realize that we don't know everything. And we have somebody that might know a little bit about everything as a guest today, and that's Jess Reidell. How are you?
Hey, I am doing great. Rod, how are you?
I'm doing wonderful. And Jess is one of the best in the country at really focusing on coaching and supporting divorced women. And if you think about it right now, that's just really, really amazing. And she helps them sort of reconnect with that identity. They'll use all of their experiences that they went through, whether good, bad, sad, and use it as muscle to really find their inner magic. And she does it all over the U.S. and probably soon all over the world. So we're very fortunate to have this bundle of energy, this most amazing person. And I think that you guys are going to get so much from her, whether you're divorced or not. So, so I want all of us to kind of realize that this is the essence of relationship, is to be able to be prepared to deal with anything and not be fearful. And maybe by not being fearful, you don't focus on those things. And sometimes you are fortunate enough to intelligently deal with those things or avoid those things by being proactive. Is that fair, Jess?
Yeah, that is. I'm just hoping I can live up to the reputation of that introduction over here.
Yeah, we're going to help people move their magic meters by just a little bit on this call today.
I hope so. That's
Awesome.
The goal, at least. Let's do it.
So, Jess, what made you decide to focus on helping divorced women?
Great question. Okay, so back when I got divorced, I was in my 20s, and I didn't manage, to be quote Tony Robbins here, I didn't manage my states very well when that happened. I actually kind of slid into depression, anxiety, regret, fear, guilt, all of the low vibe energies that you don't want to be sitting with when you're going through a crisis. And I kind of had the rainbow spectrum of all of them. And, it wasn't until years later, it took me about 4.5 years to get over my divorce. I did a lot of self-development. I read a lot. I got to know myself, and I'm once again happily married. But when I went through, my coach training, I made a major life shift a couple of years ago in deciding to pursue this channel of, really being of service to others. And as I was learning some of these coaching tools and just learning to kind of work with my own thoughts and my own mind, I'm like, oh my God, wouldn't it be fabulous if I could shorten that gap of yuck, that gap of pain and frustration and anxiety and regret and all of the emotions that I know that a lot of divorced women go through because they kind of feel like they failed at something, and it's not a comfortable feeling, but it's all a matter of perspective. Does that answer your question?
Absolutely. And what's so amazing is that once most people move through a yucky experience and they get in their mind back to where they want to be, being married, very seldom will they look back and want to support people going through that. So that just says a lot about your spirit and just you as a wonderful person.
Well,
And
thank you.
yeah,
Thank you.
that speaks volumes that you went through it and now you want to go back and actually help people not to go through some of those painful experiences. And that's value. And we need more people like you in the world right now. So thank you for that. It's
Hey,
really beautiful.
thanks.
Now, what would you say if you were going to, there's a lot of people listening to us right now that might be really in a place where they're thinking about divorce. In fact, I spoke to a friend of mine this morning and she was talking about it and it was out of nowhere. And what would your advice be for people that's sort of thinking about it, or they've made up their mind they're going to do it, yet they're feeling horrible right now at sort of this failure? And that's the way I think a lot of people look at divorce, as a failure on their part. What would be just maybe 3 quick points you would give, 3 or more quick points you would give to her if you could just offer those 3 points?
Okay. Well, the first thing that I would say, I think it's very important that people don't just make this decision from their intellectual mind. You have to be living in your body and feeling into where your soul is pulling you and what your heart really knows to make an educated decision. And I think a lot of people make a laundry list of pros and cons, and they're thinking about the money and, we have to stay because of our kids or our finances or whatever it is. But here's the thing. If your heart's not in it, it's really not meant to be. And it's highly unlikely that it's going to be successful if one or both partners have given up. So coming into your body and really saying, when I think about making this decision and I think about being on my own, because we all have to, at any given point in time, we all have to be prepared to go it alone, right? But, does this make me feel heavy or light when I think about leaving the marriage? And that's just a very simple way of putting
Really
it.
smart.
Yeah, because it doesn't come from here. It comes from here. And that expansive place in your chest where your soul knows what you want.
That's beautiful.
Yeah. So that was one. I guess it's sort of encapsulated, a couple things. So don't be in your head, go with your heart and feel into your body. So I think that was 3 things, right?
That's beautiful.
I did it.
That's beautiful. Like, have you ever thought about writing a book with those 3 sections? Because that's really I've never heard it put that way. That's beautiful.
Oh, wow. And I've never said it that way. So,
Yeah.
Here we are. That's the great thing about
Yeah.
co-creation with the divine, man. It's like, you're not alone in any of this. So
Definitely capture that, because that's a great talk. That's a great TED talk. And I've never heard it said that way. And that was very clear and that was very beautiful. And men and women can benefit from what you just said.
I believe so. Yeah, I received that.
Do you believe that women take more of the responsibility around divorce on their shoulders than the men do in these situations?
That's a very interesting question. And that's kind of hard to say because I've seen both. I think for women, it's actually, it's a little easier for them to go in this direction of sometimes making it the man's fault. Like I've seen that. And these are not my favorite clients to work with because they're not taking any responsibility for how they attracted that into their life. They're victims. They're saying, this guy was a narcissist and he came in and swooped in and ruined my life. And really, if you come from the approach that, your life happens for you and not to you, and there is a lesson to be learned with every choice you make, and you are the creator or creatrix of your own life, you'll be able to connect the dots and see why you called that in and what you needed to learn from it. So I've seen both sides of the spectrum. I've seen women that are just racked with guilt, that feel like they've failed, that are asking themselves all of the what if questions, or if only I had done this. And they do take on a lot of anger and blame themselves. But I see just as many people that are finger pointing at the partner. And I usually know which one I'm going to have an easier time working.
That's great. What would your advice be to someone who says, I really am about to embark on this really serious commitment. I think that marriage is around the corner, and the thing I fear most is divorce. I don't want to be divorced. My mother and my grandmother got divorced, and I don't want to do it. Help me with some tips as we go into this relationship, to sustain this marriage. What would some of your advice be?
Okay, well, let me presence this by first saying that going into any situation mired down in fear is always ill-advised.
Okay, very good.
Right.
So step number one would be remove the fear.
Well, you have to get into faith, and the fascinating thing is, you truly can't be in fear and faith at the same time. So anything in life worth having requires a commitment, and marriage is no exception. And marriage requires that you come to the table with as much faith and courage and trust in the unknown as you can possibly bring. I mean, it's one of the biggest leaps of faith, I think, that anyone can ever take. It's one of the biggest risks, but it's also one of the greatest rewards. So you go in with optimism, you go in with faith, you go in leaving fear in the back seat or in the trunk, or not even in the car, if that's possible for you. And you step into it and you decide, both partners decide, I'm going to choose this person every day. Sorry, I just got chills when I said that.
Yeah, that's really beautiful.
Yeah,
that's beautiful.
It takes that commitment of, I choose this, where no one ever feels pushed or pulled in a direction, or, that they were kind of cajoled into the whole situation, or they're resentful of the partner. It's really important that two people choose each other every day. And I have a theory about this. Actually,
beautiful.
have a blog about it called My Cat's Pajamas Theory, where each partner needs to think the other is like the frickin' cat's pajamas, because that's the only way it's really going to work.
Wow. So again, and let's take a step back, because you're absolutely 100% right. Being that almost 70% of the marriages end in divorce, how am I supposed to enter this without being in fear or not having some doubt?
Well, ask yourself this question. Here's just kind of what comes top of mind here. Do I want to be part of the 70%? It used to be 50. Geez. Or do I want to be that 30% that's making it work and choosing it every day?
I love it. Jess, you're really good. That's good stuff, man.
Man, Rod, you're putting me all kinds of on the spot here, but I like it. Keep it coming, okay?
I love it. You're writing your book as we talk.
I think I might have to put that in the.
I think you got some good chapters right now.
Yeah.
I think you got some good chapters right now. And this is a focus on women, which is really, really important, because it is of my belief that a lot of divorces today are a result of women just having more rights, right? I think that the divorce rate was a lot lower when women couldn't vote, or didn't have the rights, or didn't earn the money, or just didn't feel as empowered. And today they do. And men haven't made that big of a shift. And so I think that, I don't know if it's a high divorce rate. I just think that maybe we get married and we, in a beautiful way, figure out that I can be somebody completely different than maybe I was when I got married. I'm different. How often do you see that scenario?
Yeah. Let me speak to that for a moment, because that's a very interesting dynamic. And I read recently, Mama Gina really called this out. I read this in a book recently, that reinvention and recreation are a woman's birthright. Okay. And I believe that. However, I think one of the challenges that we're having as a Western society is that women, in stepping into their power, are mistakenly doing so, trying to use masculine energy. Are you with me?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Okay. So women really need to take a look at how their feminine essence is the true source of their power. And by stepping into the masculine, you create an imbalance in your relationship, because men are naturally going to be the hunters. And the feminine energy is of the receiving kind. It is to be in receiving mode. And women step into this masculine energy where they're in the directive and the take charge and the wear the pants kind of mode. And I think that's why a lot of the balance of power isn't working. And women aren't realizing that, yes, we have rights. Yes, we are all powerful. But at the end of the day, we're still women. And the power lies in the essence of the feminine. And I don't think enough people are exploring that in the way that they can leverage it to their advantage.
That's really beautiful. Man, who are you? This is beautiful. This is another good chapter in a book.
I'll tell you. Yeah.
Another good chapter. I mean, this is your chapters are being just laid out for you so beautifully here. So how should men, the other way, so how does men support their partners in becoming powerful without creating the insecurity that might lead them to want to take on some of the masculine energy?
That's a juicy question, Rod.
Yeah. How do I do it when right? How do I support her staying in the feminine as she's growing and changing?
Here's what's dropping in for me. I'm going to call it out right now. It's one word: romance.
Ooh, that's good.
Romance. It's becoming a lost art, and we need to bring back romance. This is actually a personal cause of mine. They say, make your mission a movement. Well, I'm in the business of bringing back romance. And I think to celebrate a woman's essence and celebrate her womanhood, but at the same time, be able to put her on a pedestal and show up for her in a way where you have that extreme admiration and adulation for the essence of everything feminine, and you call it out and you recognize it and you figure out that woman's love language and you speak it to her every damn day. You know, that's going to keep it alive, because if you check out or you decide, you're just romance and all this flowery crap just isn't for you, you're giving up on one of the greatest energies that can be created within a marriage, which is constantly creating and seeking romance.
So Jess, you said something, and I think this is where a lot of men suffer. And I know this is about women, and this is totally tied to divorced women. But men really think that if you're not feeling it, then it's kind of fake to do it if you don't feel it. What do you think about that?
I think you shouldn't be in the relationship.
No, I mean, I think some men are in a relationship and they feel like, how can you be romantic if you don't feel it? I could fake it, but is it real if I'm faking it?
Oh, I get the question. Okay. Then it sounds like there's some kind of disconnect between the man and the woman in the flow of love. And it might be the imbalance of power. We got the feminists running around saying, I don't want a guy to open the door for me. And that's creating part of our problem here. It's like, that's right. When I talk about leading with your masculine energy, it's like, what's wrong with being a woman, owning it, and having a man open the damn door for you? Like, that shouldn't really be a problem.
Right. So in other words, if a man, and I guess what I'm looking for here, is it okay for me to know what to do and to be romantic, even if I don't initially feel it?
Well, here's what I think a man would want to tap into here is what expressions of romance light him up? What expressions of romance is he comfortable with? It doesn't have to be the corny, I'm corny as they come. I'm like Valentine's Day, give me candy, give me flowers, give me roses. That's just, I've embraced that. I'm not going to shun that anymore. But there's people to which that seems cliche, or that seems like Hallmark holiday bullshit, or what have you. And in that case, tap into, what feels good? What gesture can I make that's gratifying for me as well as my partner? It's not a tough question. Just sit with it, And I think that's part of society's problem too, is that nobody gets quiet anymore. And nobody listens to their higher self. Nobody listens to their soul. Nobody tunes into the divine. I had a great quote that I actually put on my Instagram yesterday, and it was from like a 16th, somebody in the 1600 back in the 1600s. And he said, the biggest challenge is that nobody will sit in the room and get quiet.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. I guess, would you ever suggest, and this is coming from a friend of mine said to me that he's starting to do things that his wife would love. And she asked him one day, I really appreciate what you're doing. Is it coming from your heart? And he goes, well, what do you mean by that? And she goes, well, do you want to do it as well? And he goes, no, not all the time, but I love doing it for you. And it took away the experience for her. And is that fair? Should she be able to still enjoy the experience, even though the love that he's getting from it is for her more so than just something exactly he wanted to do, or, the romantic movie that he wouldn't watch, but he did it for her? How do you help women, and how do we communicate that?
I run into that a good bit in my own marriage. And I would say to her that as the woman, go ahead and receive it. It's being given to you. They say never look a gift horse in the mouth. Like, why are you coming from the angle of, well, if he's not coming for the right reasons? You hear that on The Bachelor, The Bachelorette, Bachelor in Paradise. You hear that crap all the time. But I think that's overthinking it. And it's also kind of, in a way, this is my perspective, and anybody can step up to disagree, but in a way that's somewhat of an emasculation to say, well, I don't want any part of this because you're just your heart. You're not in it for the right reasons. You're only doing it because I like it. Well, that in and of itself, that's a gift,
Yes.
Damn. It's not like he's stepping out to do things you don't like. You should be really happy and grateful that you have a husband that's showing up for you and watching the romantic movie. Sorry, now I'm on a soapbox, but
no, you do. Do you know how important this is, what you're saying right now? I think that so many people need to be given that permission, right? To just accept what's given to you versus digging in to make sure that the purpose is aligned with your level of emotional experience.
Right. I think you're overthinking it instead of receiving what is right in front of you and what is being given.
Right. That's beautiful. This is beautiful. You'll see you'll see how great your advice is when you get feedback. I'm going to stop complimenting you because I want you to really get that it's really, really principled in your explanation.
Well, I receive it all, Rod, and thank
Awesome.
you. I really
very nicely said.
Yeah.
So if I ask you and I said, okay, as a divorced woman, I really want to go into my next situation and be good. I want to be solid. And before I get into this next relationship, what are 3 characteristics, 3 principles I need to sort of bring into my world to make sure that I'm approaching this next situation in a solid way, that I'm attracting something that allows for us to have success?
Okay. I'm going to steal a little acronym right now from Martha Beck, and because I think it applies in this situation. And one of the things that she works with us as coaches on being, in the way that we show up and in the way that we stay present with our clients, is to be Tao. And Tao Stands for transparent, authentic, and open.
Oh, wow.
So if you're going into this, for the second time, and you're going to know a whole lot more about yourself than you did in the first go around. That's why they kind of joke sometimes that first marriages are like practice or warm up, and I see a lot of that, and it's not that I'm just all buying into statistics or what have you, but going in, making sure that you are transparent, that you are authentic, and that you are open. And I will add a fourth thing to that you're willing to be vulnerable.
That kind of equals vulnerability, doesn't it?
It does. But intimacy thrives on vulnerability and transparency.
So, okay. So how do I give me a tip to be more transparent if I'm not? What's the first thing I need to do?
Don't show up and be the chameleon. Like, okay, don't pretend to have interest in it. It's okay if you don't have interest in something that the woman likes, but like we were just talking about, you can still show up and you can still give that. You can still be a part of that, but you don't have to pretend it's for you. Just be honest, be kind, but be honest and be direct.
And this works both ways, right? So this works both ways.
Yes. Yeah.
Absolutely. And so what would you say, what would be advice for a woman to be more transparent, or some of the patterns you've noticed? For the man to come up and be transparent that way, how would a woman be more transparent?
Well, I think it's very similar. I think there's a lot of women that put on a mask or, wear a different hat in order to please a man, or they dim their light or dull their shine to kind of stay in this sort of, I'm not coming up with the right word, sort of a pejorative position, so that their man can feel more masculine. I see that creating an imbalance as well, because in the long term, that's not going to last, because that's not a woman stepping into her real feminine power. And that's not a woman who's living her divine purpose through her feminine essence. So, not shifting and changing who you are to not upset the apple cart. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, absolutely. Beautifully said. How about, what's the difference between being transparent and being more authentic?
Let me think about that. No one has ever asked me that question before. So, damn, Rod, you came up with a question that kind of has me stumped here for a second.
No,
the difference between transparency and authenticity. And they're coming up in my mind right now, being very similar. I'd have to get back to you on that.
I think you kind of said it. I think that when you said the art of being quiet, right? I think that's when you get to that authentic place. Right?
Yes. I'm with you on that. Yes.
Yeah.
That's where you really listen to the truth of your soul,
right.
And you own it and you take it in. So you're like, I'm tired of faking it. I'm tired of pretending. I'm tired of showing up based on what other people expect of me or what I want them to.
Right. Because transparency is how you feel in the moment. Authenticity is who you are.
Who you are. Who you be.
Who you be, right? Yeah. Which is at the beyond your emotional states, beyond a good day or a bad day. Is at the essence of who you are. That's what I heard.
Thank you for that clarity, Rod. You're brilliant too. We should do a love show.
Yeah, we should. I'm thinking about that. What about and of course I gotta tell me more about being open.
Being open. Oh, okay. I love being open. Being open with your expectations. There's just so much garbage out there where people go in and they're attached to an expectation of what somebody needs to show up and do and be and look like, when that might not even be the match for you at all. We go in and we're vice gripping onto this concept of who is worthy of being in our lives, as opposed to really receiving who that person is.
Oh, wow.
And loving all of the things about them, their strengths and their shortcomings. And not trying to change a person. That's a huge thing too. Like, a lot of women go into a marriage and they're like, well, I'll fix this, or I'm going to work on that. and while you might be able to chip away at the little things like, the man's sense of fashion or what have you, you shouldn't go in trying to completely change the man. Be the woman he admires. He'll come along for the ride, but you nagging and nitpicking and kind of, trying to tear apart a characteristic of your partner is the kiss of death to a relationship.
Beautiful. That's beautiful. So what I love about that is, and you kind of said it earlier, you said that faith, if you brought up faith, and I think that openness, you really almost need to have a level of faith to be open, because when you're open, you're not protecting yourself. You're open to the lessons. You're open to what you're attracting. In fact, that's what we were talking about earlier. As I said to my friend on a call, that she was telling me what she really wanted in her situation. Yet she's been in the situation for 5 years saying the same thing. And she's free. I mean, she has her own financial life. She can do what she wants to do. But we started saying, why don't you love what you're attracting before you can accept what you want, right? In other words, you're attracting this situation over and over and over again. Why don't you love that first and then see what it tells you, right?
Yeah, and not only love it, but then love it into oblivion if you need to. So
That's exactly right. They let it, you, before it'll go, you have to love it because it's serving a purpose. It's protecting you in some way, right?
Yeah.
That's exactly right. So I think that's, that whole idea of being open is really, really trusting your attraction enough to be open to the lesson that brought this into your existence, or brought this relationship into your existence. This is good.
This is good stuff. It's so juicy, Rod. It's so juicy. I'm having so much fun. Does this have to be over? Can we keep going? I'm ready to take calls from listeners right now.
I know. We're definitely going to do this again. I'm going to have you as a guest on one of our programs, because I think this is good stuff. It's not fluffy. I mean, I think people can listen to this and get a lot of help, but just imagine if they could get specific with you. I think you're doing a heck of a job on this call. Thank you.
I appreciate that.
Yeah. So what message, and as we start wrapping up the show here a little bit, what message would you send to, first, women that are just about to go through a divorce? They've made up their minds and they're going to go through with it. And what would be your message to that person?
That the message for the person would be that self-care and self-acceptance need to be paramount in your life for the next 12 months. And I'm gonna sound kind of like I'm putting the kibosh on things, but it's actually, therapists have said this for years, and I'm in agreement too, having gone in the other direction, but to take some time to get to know yourself again in those 12 months following the divorce. It is not the time to go out and validate yourself by pursuing another relationship. It's time to get the validation from within.
So that you would say, for women that aren't yet divorced but are about to be, this is what they need to proactively think about.
Women and men. Yeah, okay. Both really. Yeah.
What about the women, and this might be the same answer, what about women who just went through a divorce?
Like how recently? Can you be more specific?
In 12 months or less.
In 12 months or less, advice for them. Well, after that's funny you even asked that, because I actually wait till people have been divorced a year to work with them. And the reason being, they're going to go through crazy time. There's just that point of anger of, there's a little bit of self-destruction that tends to creep in for a lot of people, can't get enough to drink or whatever it is. There's some regressed adolescent things that tend to happen when men and women get divorced. But after that first year, it's time to get off of the pity party train and get ready to reinvent yourself, because you want to use this experience as a springboard to a juicier life, to a richer, fuller life. And you have to go into that with the strength and the belief that you will find what you're looking for again, because you are going to become it, like you just said, attracting what you are.
So I can be hopeful in between. At right around a year, I'm going to naturally start healing.
That's usually when you're able to come out of the fog. And you don't. Here's the thing: you don't have to go it alone. I mean, there is coaching, and I think that's what's with the coaching industry. There's a lot of people that have a lot of misconceptions, and they just think coaching is for people with a lot of problems who are an absolute disaster. That couldn't be further from the truth. I mean, think about a football team. You're not going to have a guy on the team to be like, yeah, you go on out on the field and deal with those fellas. I'm good. Like that wouldn't fly, right? But everyone's in denial of the fact that they could use a little help. And the fact is, there are people that have known your suffering that can help show you what it's like not to suffer anymore.
That's beautiful. Okay, and then the last question is, what would you say to women who they feel like they've gone through divorce and they're ready now for a new relationship?
That open word is coming back again. Okay. That remaining open and non-judgmental and stepping into it without attachment to the outcome. That's like one of the worst things with these women on the dates, and they're on the first date and they're treating it like an interview, where they're sizing the man up. What are his intentions, his political persuasion? None of that needs to be talked about on the first date. It's like, do you vibe with this guy? Do you like him? Do you like his energy? Are you enjoying his company? Are you open to the possibility of seeing him again? You don't need to go through this laundry list of kids, and you definitely don't need to be bringing up the past. And don't talk about your ex, whatever you do.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Do it.
That's great advice.
Yeah.
That's great advice. That's wonderful. I think this has been such a delightful call. And I would recommend people watch the show. If you're happily married, this can support you. If you're looking for a relationship and you've never been through a divorce, this is an amazing content. And Jess is an amazing coach, right? So I know that she focuses on divorced women, but man, we need to really bring her on and have her talk to singles and men and young women and go to schools, because again, this was what she said here. If you really think about it and you listen to it and you just listen with an open mind, and again, taking in information with empathy and without judgment, listening, that's what this is. You'll see that she really gave you some tips on being such an amazing person, such an amazing soul, that you will attract something that's beautiful, right? And if you're already in a relationship, you will enhance and make it beautiful if you don't think it's beautiful already. So, Jess, thank you so much for joining us today. And would you like to give any parting words to our beautiful audience listening?
Yeah. I guess my best piece of advice is stop looking for love, because it's all inside of you.
Oh, that's beautiful. Well, we're going to end on that note. Thank you so much. Love you. And I can't wait to the next opportunity. Me too. Thank you so much. It was a privilege to be on, Rod, and great to see your face. Awesome. Bye. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much for catching this episode of the Growth Life Podcast. Join us at growth-u.com. That's growth-u.com.